Take your Bibles, turn over to Ecclesiastes. Go to about chapter 11. 11. If you're South Georgia native, it's 11. And just mark that place, chapter 11. You know, John 10:10 tells us, Jesus says, the thief cometh but to steal and to kill and to destroy, but I've come that you might have what? Life, and have it more abundantly. Satan is trying to steal everything that he can. He can't. If you're saved, he can't steal your salvation, but he can sure steal your joy. He can cause you to worry and fret and carry on and get all bent out of shape and wonder and all these kinds of things. And he's out to do that. And that's one of his jobs. Somebody said, this fellow always, he could find something good to say about everybody, and we ought to be able to do that. We'd be a lot happier if we would, instead of looking for the bad things. And this fellow said, I got him. I know what I'll do. He can't say anything bad about the devil. So he walks up to him and said, I know somebody you can't say anything good about, the devil. And he thought for a moment. He said, he's always on the job. And he is. Always on the job. Matter of fact, Paul talks about much more. Much more. Jesus has much more for us. Abundantly. He can do exceedingly abundantly all that we ask or think. But you know, one of our real problems today as Christians, most of us, if we would admit it, we would say, as I look back on my life, there are some things that I would change. Now, don't get holier than thou on me, because I know there's some things that you would change if you could. There's someone that said it's not the things that we did, but the things that we didn't do that we're going to regret the most. But we think that God is a killjoy. We think that if we'll just dwell on the thou shalt nots, that, boy, we'll make it in. I'm not going to say that you won't make it in, but you'll sure go through life losing your joy. If you just commit your life, if we just as Christians commit our life to the Lord every day, as Paul talks about in Romans, every day we get up and just say, Lord, here I am. I want to live for you. I want to commit my life to you again today. We wouldn't find ourselves having to dwell on the thou shalt not so much. Oh, I know that we need to be aware now of the things that we do. God's going to scrutinize those things one day, particularly if we're young. I think he cuts us old folks a little more slack, don't you? No, I don't. He didn't do that. But I want to talk to you this morning about those things that we would have done if we had known then what we know now. Too many of us are afraid to enjoy life. We're afraid. We view God as somebody with a big paddle and just waiting for us, or a ruler, and just waiting for us to do something bad, and he's going to pop us on our head or on our hands. Did you know that most of the time we view God as we view our earthly father? Whatever view that you had of your earthly father, if he was a strong disciplinarian, that's the way probably you view God, if you haven't changed. If your father didn't love you that much, then you probably don't think God loves you. He's always out to punish you. But I want to talk with you this morning about some things that we would do differently if we knew now what we know then what we know now. We need to enjoy life, folks. We don't have but one life on this earth to live, and we need to wake up and smell the roses, or slow down and smell the roses, or something to that effect. And I know that roses, they have thorns. Marion went and bought a beautiful, beautiful yellow rose. No, it was orange. I thought I had it, the yellow rose of Texas. But I could say the orange rose of Texas, Brother Jim, rose of Texas. But I had to move that thing because I wanted to back my lawnmower out of the garage or whatever, and she had the rose bush out there. So I had to move it. And guess what? It was beautiful, but it had a thorn. And it stuck me right in the arm. But I'll take the beauty of the rose and not worry about the thorns. If you worried about the thorns, you wouldn't ever enjoy a rose. If you worried about things like that, you wouldn't ever enjoy life. Oh, look at the bad things that may happen to me. Paul said, for to me to live is Christ, but to die is gain. So you got the best of both worlds. Why don't you enjoy it? Why don't you get excited about it? Let me share some scriptures with you. They admonish us not to procrastinate as we live, not to put things off. Live life, every golden moment of it, because it'll be over before you know it. It seems like just yesterday that I was a teenager. Some of you know what I'm talking about. Just like your married life, some of you, it seems like, you've like Jacob said, he had to work for who did Jacob marry? Leah, but he worked for He worked for Leah 7 years, and then he had to turn around and work for, who did you say? Rebecca. Is that who it was? I hope you're right. 7 years. 7 years. And he said, it seems as but a day, because it was a labor of love. Some of you feel like that you've been married for 100 years and you've only been married 10. I hear far too many people say, and I find myself saying that now more than I should, I wish I'd have tried that when I was younger. I wish I'd have done this or that. And now it's too late. You got a bucket full of lists, but you can't do them anymore. You can't do them now because you've waited too long and you regret it. God wants us to live and live life now. Live the day that you have. Try some new things. Try some different things. Someone said, go somewhere that you've never been at least once a year. I know Miss Sarah and Brother Eddie, did you go with them this week? They went over to the Garden of Eden. They do that once a year. That's St. Simon's, by the way. Do something new. Do something that you hadn't done in a while. Do some things that a lot of folks would call silly. Oh, that's just such a silly thing to do. Well, do it once in a while. Do things on an impulse once in a while. Just for the fun of it. Just for the fun of it. When's the last time you did anything just for the fun of it? Oh, I don't have time. If you're that busy, you need to take time. God wants us to live. Ecclesiastes chapter 11. And I want to start reading at verse 1. The wise man, the preacher, said, cast thy bread, the wise man, cast thy bread upon the waters, for thou shalt find it after many days. That's really a metaphorical expression, really taken from the grain trade of that day. And it's talking about the successful venture of a business transaction. Do it. Listen now as it goes. Give a portion to 7 and also to 8, for thou knowest not what evil shall be upon the earth. In other words, diversify your investments. You don't know if this business venture, if this investment is going to work out or not. But Brother Ray, this is something about the stock market here. Diversify. Quit worrying about, don't put all your eggs in one basket. That's what some of us are doing, putting all our eggs in one basket in life and then watching the basket, and we die watching the basket. Just sitting on eggs. Really doorknobs. You know what I'm talking about. Some of us do that. Jeremiah talks about sitting on eggs as a partridge sits on eggs. You know what he's talking about? When I was growing up and you were growing up, some of you remember this, an old setting hen would think she was setting, or she would be in that setting mood. You know what I'm talking about. How many of you know what I'm talking about? Talking about setting hen. Those that didn't raise their hand, y'all tell them after the service what that means. But here's old walking around clucking, carrying on, whatever. And what we would do, my granny would take a doorknob and put it in that nest, and that old hen had sat on that doorknob and sat on that doorknob and sat on that doorknob. And that's what a lot of us are doing. Not hatching anything, living a terrible, terrible life in our own self, just sitting on doorknobs when we could be happy. You're welcome. If the clouds be full of rain, they empty themselves upon the earth. If the tree fall toward the south or toward the north, in the place where the tree falleth, there shall be. It's going to come to an end. You better learn how to enjoy life. And more abundantly. It's what the Lord gives you. He that, notice verse 4 now, he that observeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the cloud shall not reap. If you sit around and you look at everything in this life and you talk about how terrible it is and how awful it is, you're never going to do anything, and you're never going to amount to a hill of beans. You can't always see the end at the beginning. And if you sit around trying to figure it all out before you ever get started, you're not going to ever do anything. Like a farmer, the farmer don't know if it's going to rain or not, but guess what? He plants the seeds. It may produce or it may not, but brother, he's planted and he's expecting a crop, a harvest. Thou knowest not what is the way of the Spirit, nor how the bones do grow in the womb of her that is with child. Even so thou knowest not the works of God who makes it all. You're never going to understand everything about God. Our minds are finite. His mind is infinite. He is omniscient. We don't know everything, but He does. So we put our trust in Him, and we march out into the future with full confidence that I know whom I have believed and am confident. I'm confident that He's able to keep all that I've committed unto Him against whatever day, particularly that day when He comes back. In the morning sow thy seed. In the evening withhold not thine hand, for thou knowest not whether shall prosper, either this or that, or whether they both shall be alike good. Do it. Go ahead and plant. Expect to harvest. Truly, the light is sweet and a pleasant thing. It is not the eye. It is for the eye to behold the sin. But if a man live many years and rejoice in them all, yet let him remember the days of darkness, for they shall be many. All that cometh is vanity. In those two verses, light signifies life, darkness, death. It's light for you right now because you're here. I'm here. But it's going to get dark one day if the Lord tarries His coming, and you're going to die. So you better enjoy the days that God's given you now. You better make up your mind. Folks, to live, you're going to have to take a few chances. The Bible calls that faith. You're going to have to step out on faith and do some things you want to do. Do some things that don't dwell on thou shalt not, thou shalt not. Commit your life to the Lord, and God will stop you if you're not doing something that you ought not to be doing. Rejoice, O young man, in thy youth, and let thy heart cheer thee in the days of thy youth, and walk in the ways of thine heart. Now notice this, walk in the ways of your heart, and in the sight of thine eyes. But know this, God's going to scrutinize those things, so you best commit your life to the Lord and trust Him. But that doesn't mean that you ought not to step out and do some things that you'd like to do. Therefore, remove sorrow from your heart and put away evil from your flesh, for childhood and youth. Really, that word, vanity, translates there transitory or fleeting. Won't be here very long. So what he's saying is, don't sit around waiting for the perfect moment. Don't try to figure it all out. You can't do it. Do the best you can, make your plans, but then step out and do it. And some things just do on impulse. Things will never be perfect. People have told me, Clyde, just do it. Quit worrying. Quit trying to figure it all out. I'm too analytical. I know that. I try to figure everything out and try to be sure that I know what it's going to be out here and so forth. But I'll never know all that. Some things I can, but some things I can't. I wonder, Lord, if this is God's will. You ever? Sometimes even things like trading cars. Lord, is it your will? Is it your will? And God really is telling me so many times, do you want that car? If you do, if you can afford it, buy it. We're worrying about what somebody else is going to think or say. It's your car. Enjoy it. God's will is a lot bigger than most of us realize and think that it is. He wants us to enjoy life and enjoy the things that He's given us, and not to let things possess us, but for us to possess the things that He's given us. If it's not morally wrong, if it's not fattening, do it. If it's not scripturally wrong, if it won't hurt somebody else, damage them, just do it. I remember one time a wife and 2 children. We didn't have a dog. Well, we did, but we left him somewhere. But anyway, with another couple, they had 2 kids, and we had 2 kids, and we camped all through the Smokies. Son, I got my beta camping, but I tried it. I did my time camping. We came back and camped in a little campground right outside of Six Flags, and we looked over there, and right over there was a big old motel, and we looked, and my friend Joe looked, and we thought, let's go over there. We're so tired of sleeping on the ground, and we're so tired of eating, cooking with a Bunsen burner stove. Let's go over there and see if we can get us a room. We go over there, and they tell us how much, and we counted our money. We didn't have enough between us to stay if we all stayed in one room. But we tried. We didn't sit at home and say, well, I'm not going because we're going to end up at Six Flags and we can't even afford a motel. But we did it, and now we look back and laugh and have just a good time about it. My supervisor told me one day, I was thinking about changing jobs. And he said, why don't you try it? I said, well, I'm afraid it may not work out. He said, son, you're young now. And if you're going to ever try anything, you need to go ahead and try it. You can always change. You can do something else while you're young. Don't wait until you get old and look back and wonder what would have happened if you had changed. It may work out. He said work is only work if you don't like what you're doing. So if you don't like what you're doing now, it's work. So you need to try to find you something that you enjoy doing. It won't be work to you. And I did. And after a couple of months, I didn't. I found out that I had made a mistake. So I went back and got on my knees and said, can I have my job back? But I tried. And I'm glad I did. Because that's one thing I knew that I didn't want to do the rest of my life. Abraham Lincoln said everybody's about as happy as they make up their mind to be. And that goes for us today. You're about as happy today as you make up your mind to be. John Maxwell wrote a book, sold no telling how many copies, and the title of the book was Happiness is a Choice. And it is. You can choose to be happy, or you can choose to be sad. You can choose to relate to the Lord in every situation, and you can find the good in just about anything and everybody. So just about. Or you can decide to always look on the downside and see God as an old fuddy-duddy that wants you to be unhappy and wants you to think that you've been born in the objective case and the kickity mood and you want everybody to get your point. Like you've been pickled in pickle juice. Or you can decide that you want to be happy, content. There's some things, folks, in life that we ought to just do it. Because directly it's going to get too late and you can't do it. And one day you'll regret it. Paul tells us in Romans 13:11, it's time to wake up. And for some of us, it is that time. It's time to wake up and start living. Living life, enjoying life. Some of you listening to me here in this audience, and some of you listening to me on television, you know that you're not living. You know you're not. You're just existing, and you call yourself a Christian, and you dread every day. You wake up every morning. Instead of saying, good morning, Lord, you're saying, good Lord, it's morning. It's time to wake up. Quit saving for a rainy day and living in a drizzle. Enjoy life. Laugh a little. You ought to laugh a lot every day. When's the last time you had just a truly good old-fashioned belly laugh? When's the last time you did that? Laughter is the best medicine, you know. You could save yourself a lot of castor oil if you'd do that. Laughter is the best medicine. Try some new things. Quit worrying about tomorrow. Jesus tells us not to do that. In other words, don't spend our time worrying, he's talking about. We need to remember, folks. Now, I know we need to remember that the early bird gets the worm. But there's something else that you and I need to remember. It's the second mouse that gets the cheese. Don't you ever forget that. So if you want to sleep, if you want to sleep an extra hour, go ahead and grab your, listen, just enjoy living, enjoy life. Slow down a little and live. Let your hair down. Some of you hadn't let your hair down so long till you wouldn't even know how to get the hairpins out of it. Just let your hair down a little bit. Some of you won't even let your husband see you when you wake up until you fix your hair. He's not in love with your hair. He's in love with you, so don't worry about it. When's the last time you went somewhere, ladies, and didn't put on a lipstick or not a drop of makeup? Same to you men. You don't wear lipstick, but you wear makeup. Thoreau said this, What you get by achieving your goals is not as important as what you become by achieving your goals. How important that is. Some of us, you've been successful. You're able to live. You have plenty of money to get by on. Certainly have some things that you want, but you found out that it's not money that was going to make you happy. It's not your money and the things that you've been able to buy that gives you enjoyment. You're still as miserable as you were when you were poor as Job's turkey. It's being who God wants you to be and enjoying the life that God has blessed you with. Wake up. Realize, God, thank you for blessing me. Thank you for blessing me. Live each day as if it was your last. That reminds me of a teenager who went with his daddy to church. The preacher's topic was the second coming of Jesus. Dinner table he was sitting in, the son said, Daddy, I have a lot of questions about the last times and the second coming of Christ. And the daddy tried to explain to him and finally he saw the perplexity on the teenager's face, and he said, son, really the best advice I can give you is just to prepare yourself and live each day as if it was your last. And he looked at his daddy after a moment and he said, Daddy, I tried that, and after that I was grounded for a month. God's not going to do you that way. Most of us think that's what God will do. If we mess up somehow or other, God's going to kick us out or He's going to ground us. Why don't you just trust God and let go and live, and God will keep you in line. The wise man tells us that there's a time for everything under the heavens. Folks, it's time to wake up and live. It's time to, if you're going to ever do some things that you'd like to do, some of you better do it. Some of us better do it. And we better do it quickly. Some of us need to cut ourselves a little slack. And we need to cut others a little slack as well, and we'd enjoy life a lot better. Jesus says in John 9:4, work while it's day, live while it's day, because the night comes when you won't be able to work. Paul tells Timothy over in chapter 4 of 2 Timothy, he said, Timothy, my life is just about over. I'm fixing to go meet the Lord out there on that Station Way. And I would like for you to come see me. People that's dying usually like to have familiar people and familiar things around them. Timothy, come see me and bring some of my familiar things that I left yonder up. Bring some parchments that I want to reread again, and bring my old clothes. It's cold down here in this dungeon. And Timothy, bring some Mark, and bring some of my friends, close friends, with you when you come. And he says this, and we need to remember this. He says, Timothy, if you're going to come, son, you better do it before winter comes. Because winter's just around the corner and you won't be able to make it. I'll be gone. I'll be dead. And if there's any benevolences that you want to do, anything that you'd like to try, anybody that you'd like to tell them that you love them, any time that you want to spend with somebody, you better do it now before winter comes. Because when it comes, it'll be too late. I heard a song. I want to read it to you as I close. Bill Anderson wrote it. I heard John Connolly sing it, but it really spoke to my heart. The words go like this. I wouldn't dare try to sing it. He said, I'd have spent a lot more time out in the pouring rain. The title of it is A Lot of Things Differently. In other words, if I had to go over with again, I'd do a lot of things differently. And I want you to ask yourself this question and think about this. I'd have spent a lot more time out in the pouring rain without an umbrella covering my head. That seems silly, but one of those little things that'll mean a lot to you directly. And I'd have stood up to that bully when he pushed and shoved and called me names, but I was too afraid. And I've gone on and seen Elvis that night when he came to town and Mama said I couldn't. Oh, I'd have done a lot of things different. I wish I'd have spent more time with my dad when he was alive, and now I don't have the chance. I wish I'd told my brother just how much I loved him before he went off to war, but I just shook his hand. I think about myself. I wish I would have talked to my brother more before he died. Wish I'd have got together with him more. Wish I would have told him I loved him. Same thing with my sister. And I wish I'd have gone to church on Sunday mornings when my grandma begged me to, but I was scared of God. And I wish I would have listened when they said, boy, you're going to wish you had, but I wouldn't. Oh, I'd do a lot of things different. People say they wouldn't change a thing, even if they could. Oh, but I would. There was this red dress she wanted one time, so bad she could taste it. I should have bought it, but I didn't. She wanted to paint our bedroom yellow, trim it in blue and greens, but I wouldn't let her. It wouldn't have hurt nothing. Oh, and she loved to be held and kissed and touched, but I didn't do it, not nearly enough. And if I'd known that was going to be our last dance, I'd have told the band to play on and on and on and on. In my case, as they were rolling my wife into surgery, if I'd have known this would have been the last embrace on this side of eternity, I'd have told that guy pushing that gurney, wait, 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 and wait. People say they wouldn't change a thing even if they could. Oh, but I would. Oh, I'd have done a lot of things different. Yes, I'd do a lot of things different. And in these last few years, I want to add, I have done a lot of things different. This is the day the Lord hath made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. So live well, my friend. But one day you're going to look back, you don't already, and say, I would have done a lot of things different.